Well, hey folks, Real Honesty with Joe Richland is a 20-year reflection on WCW Bash at the Beach 1998, featuring DDP and Karl Malone in the main event against Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman in a pretty shit tag match. Mainly because of Rodman, but I'll get to that in a bit. It's not actually the worst tag match that features celebrity involved in a WCW ring. That came at the next pay-per-view, Road Wild 98, which I should be able to do a reflection on. Perhaps. Maybe. We'll see. At least that main event I'll talk about. But if you do want to get my thoughts on all the pay-per-views that WCW has put on, I think with the exception of Wrestle War and Battle Bowl 93, I've reviewed basically all of them. Now I'm just getting to the Clash of Champions. You can check out the playlist and everything. I did shorter reviews of all the Great American Bashes, Bash at the Beach, World War III, Mayhem, that kind of stuff. So you can check those out if you want. But figured I'd go a little more in-depth on some of these shows, so why not do it for Bash at the Beach 98? They had a high package for the main matches, pretty cool graphics and everything. And then you had Saturn versus Raven in a Ravens Rules match. Raven's pretty underrated as far as being a good ring psychologist. I think he could always get the most out of his opponents and would try to. I mean, hell, he managed to have a competitive feud with the Sandman in ECW when the Sandman was, a shit worker and couldn't fucking do anything ever except injure himself or injure other people or toss shit around or hit himself in the head with a beer can. Yes, Sandman was shit. I don't know if he was a shit person. I'm not saying he was. But, boy, he was a really, really bad worker. But he didn't actually come into the company until about 6 months after this. So, here we go. So, Saturn and Raven. It was outside at first, as you would expect. This is when Saturn was distancing himself from Raven and would lead actually to Fall Brawl 98, where he would beat Raven and would break up the flock, which I thought was a really, really good story. And then would lead to Kidman actually getting a pretty good push out of it. So, there was this one spot in the match I got to talk about. So Saturn sets up two tables. One table, and then puts Raven on that table. And then puts another table on top. Standing up. So, okay. Double stack table, Public Enemy's done it. And other people have done it. Canyon runs down, because Canyon's had to heat with both of these guys. Especially when just get his hands on Raven. He pulls Raven out from under the tables. Saturn saw this and still dived through the tables. Now, there's no way from his vantage point that he couldn't have seen the Canyon pulled Raven out. There's just no way. So it made Saturn look like a damn goof. He goes through one of the tables. Canyon lays out Raven in the ring, hitting a flatliner on a chair, and then rolls Saturn back in the ring, and then Raven covers him 1, 2, 3, and Raven wins. Okay, whatever. Saturn and Raven are actually capable of having very good matches. This really wasn't one of them because some of the spots laid out weren't that great. And I don't know if it was mistimed or what. It just didn't look good. It just did not look good. And Saturn and Raven are both more than capable of better things than this. And so I'm not going to lay it at their feet. I'm going to lay it at the feet of the people. Whoever decided this was a good idea to lay out these spots probably could have gone a whole lot better. That's all I'm going to say. Kidman versus Juventud Guerrero, a very good match. These two always have really good matches. In 98 and 99. Juvi was a lot better when he didn't talk. And it's actually amazing that Juvi and his ego, especially his ego, could fit inside this arena. The man has a Texas-sized ego. It's incredible. Great flow to it, though. Great match. Kidman and Juvi, even though it seemed like it should have had a couple moves before it did. 450 splash for the win. Juvi gets victory. Good stuff. Really enjoyed it. Picked back up. Both, Flock is 1-1 now. And you had Stevie Ray versus Chavo. It was going to be 1 of 2 matches for Chavo. He had to get through Stevie Ray to face Eddie Guerrero in a hair versus hair match. Well, he kind of fools everybody because with Stevie Ray, he goes to shake his hand, and Stevie Ray shakes his hand, and then Chavo pretends like, he's got such a strong grip that he's got to tap out. He taps out from a handshake as a way to save himself to face Eddie Guerrero in that hair versus hair match. So Stevie Ray's all upset, whatever. He goes to the back. Eddie and Chavo have a pretty good competitive match. They've had better matches than this, especially later in WCW. And especially in WWE. I think their 2004 Royal Rumble match was pretty good. They would have better matches than this one. But the hair versus hair stipulation wasn't bad. Chavo ended up losing because both men kept trying to go for the scissors despite not winning. And then Chavo goes for the scissors, gets rolled up. And Chavo's like, oh, okay, Eddie, you think you won? I'm going to shave my own head. And he's shaving his own head. And Eddie gets, weirded out and leaves. And Chavo looked better bald, quite frankly. I think the bald look worked for him. But yeah, it was just to show Chavo was more nuts. And you had Disco Inferno versus Conan in a special added match. Well, I don't really care for either of these guys, but Conan at least was a good worker. Conan managed to get the victory pretty quickly. He had Alex Wright there at ringside. Alex Wright deserved better than teaming with Disco Inferno. Disco was shit. Disco was shit promo, shit worker. Wasn't any good. The TV title was forever tarnished because he actually had a hold of it. But you had Lex Luger and Kevin Nash at ringside on Conan's side because you had the Wolfpack. Okay, and then at one point, Alex Wright's interfering or trying to. He's attacking Conan outside, rolls him in the ring. Lex Luger gets him on a torture rack and doesn't do a very good job, of course, because Lex Luger doesn't really know how to do a very good job. And Nash, behind the referee's back, despite the fact you would think the ref could hear somebody get in the ring that's 6'10", 6'11", Jackknife powerbomb to Disco. Damn shame he didn't drop Disco right on his head. Sorry, I don't like Disco. I don't. The guy was a freaking cancer to WCW as far as I'm concerned. And a cancer to wrestling in general because he wasn't any good. He wasn't any good. He was a shit person. And also, in fact, he's a Russo stooge. That right there should say it. I mean, just Disco never belonged in a wrestling ring. Let's just say that much. And Conan gets Tequila Sunrise on Disco soon after. And, okay, whatever, that happened. Giant versus Kevin Green. Kevin Green, very underrated as far as being somebody from the NFL that came into wrestling that did pretty damn well. He was only involved in like 4 or 5 matches that I can think of. And he was pretty good. I mean, he brought an intensity. He clearly loved it. He wanted to learn it. And he was good at it. As good as one can be for not being a full-time wrestler. He took it to the Giant, did well, but the Giant basically ended up squashing him in the end. Choke slam, 1, 2, 3. Certainly not bad. And then Chris Jericho was going to face Dean Malenko, but Dean Malenko in the previous Nitro, which I did a review on, that was the one that Goldberg and Hogan had their match on free TV given away. Check that out if you'd like, 20-year reflection on that. Dean Malenko had attacked Jericho, and therefore, since there was a no contact order, forfeited his match to face, or his ability to face Jericho at this pay-per-view. So J.J. Dillon was like, hey, I got a guy, local guy, hasn't wrestled in 6 months, coming off an injury. Would you want to face him or whatever? And Jericho's like, it'll be for the title, and can I still make it a no disqualification match? Yeah, you can make it. You really want a no disqualification match? So they're in San Diego, by the way. So at the Cox Arena, just insert your jokes here. Yes, insert your Cox jokes here. Said Cox so many times, it's lost all Coxy meaning. There we go. So lost all Coxy meaning anyway. Rey Mysterio makes his return. Chris Jericho had beaten him at WCW. NWO sold out in January of 98, taking him out. So Rey could have major knee surgery. Rey came back, looking in great shape. And it was good. It was a great pop, for San Diego. Jericho and Rey had a really, really good match. Really enjoyable. I really liked this. They would have better matches a little bit further on, especially I think their 2009 series was really good in WWE. But their WCW matches always had a good pop to them. And no, not a pop in Rey's knees. Rey managed to get the victory, use a chair, this kind of stuff. Jericho and him told a really good story going after each other's knees. And Dean Malenko was running down to the ring at one point, or walking down to the ring. Rey had managed to get the win. Malenko chased Jericho to the back. Arn stopped Jericho. And Malenko and Jericho brawled a bit before the camera cut away. So Rey is a new Cruiserweight champion. Wouldn't be Cruiserweight champion for very long, but it was still a good story. And then you have Bret Hart versus Booker T. Not very good, and this should have been. Bret Hart not being used well in WCW pissed me off. And yes, I talked about the Bret Hart usage in WCW. This was really, really bad. Really, 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 really. I talked about my times of wrestling that pissed me off series. This should have been a ton better than it was. It was decent, but it's like it was very methodical. And I mean, I didn't expect Bret to do a bunch of flips, but this should have been better than it was. There was chair usage that caused a DQ. Figure 4 around around the ring post. Stevie Ray saunters to the ring and kind of stops Bret and kind of hauls Booker T off, but doesn't really do much. I mean, it's like really kind of like that's your brother and that's what you're doing. It tells the story of Stevie Ray joining NWO Hollywood soon, but still. And then Kurt Hennig versus Goldberg. Kurt Hennig versus Goldberg for WCW title was over in 5 minutes. Kurt tried. No one could really get a great match out of Goldberg, with the exception of DDP and a couple others. Goldberg was never going to be a guy that worked long matches. It was less than 5 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes at the most. Goldberg wins, cool, whatever. Dennis Rodman and Hulk Hogan versus DDP and Karl Malone. This is going to be a quick review, by the way, so I apologize if I don't go too in-depth on this. This pay-per-view wasn't that good. It wasn't that bad, don't get me wrong, because there were a lot of WWE pay-per-views that weren't that good. This had a huge fight feel, but it was given 30 minutes, and it should have been given maybe 20. After the show started, where you had the intros for 5 minutes, done about 15 minutes of action, because this did not need to be a near 30-minute match. It did not need to be. I think it was like 25 minutes, actually. But still, it did not need to be that long. I don't care how good athletes Rodman and Malone were. They should have not been in the ring that long. Whether they were on the ring apron or whether they were in the ring, neither could wrestle a really, really long match. Now, DDP and Hogan were good enough, and DDP was clearly the MVP of this. Malone did well. Rodman botched a lot, and I mean a lot. Holy crap. Was he drunk? Was he on downers? What the fuck was with Rodman? He was doing really, really bad. And the fans were starting to chant at points, boring. I mean, and I don't blame him. Now look, this match should have not been as long as it was. But again, the whole thing with Jay Leno in the ring a month later actually made this look like, the freaking Citizen Kane of tag team wrestling. It was not very good at all. And what was even worse was the finish. You had a couple diamond cutters. DDP had Hogan cover for like ever, even though the ref saw it, he didn't make a count. Then the Disciple comes in, hitting the Apocalypse, the goofy stunner, and then DDP gets pinned by Hogan. So all this hype and everything. Now Hogan did lose the previous Monday, so I get it. They had to give him a win, that kind of stuff. But it was really ridiculous because it made Malone and DDP seem ridiculous. It just did. Especially, now, I mean, I sort of get it because Leno would get the pin. And yes, Jay Leno got a pin at World Wild 98. That's how ridiculous that was. I never understood why. I mean, I get why mainstream attention, but I just never got why they put Jay Leno in the ring. And honest to God, it was so damn ridiculous. It was so embarrassing. In fact, you know what? Fuck it. I got enough time on this review. I'm just going to include a little rant on the Road Wild 98 main event. Because, I ran through it. Bash at the Beach 98 is worth seeing. There are a few good undercard matches. And yes, you could watch the main event and appreciate what Malone and Rodman tried to do. Especially Malone, because Malone appreciated. Rodman, to me, was just drunk. He was a natural of being a dick heel, and that's about it. Let's just go to Road Wild 98. Let's just go with that main event, because I may not have time to review that whole event. And honestly, the event itself wasn't that great. And you can get my full thoughts on the event if you check out my Road Wild history. There were only 4 events, so that's all you have to do. But it's Hogan and Eric Bischoff against DDP and Jay Leno. Now let me tell you why this is some of the biggest fucking bullshit I've ever goddamn seen. Leno should have been in somebody's corner. Been in DDP's corner, and you should have had somebody in there. Kevin Eubanks at least looked like a fucking athlete. You could have put him in there, but that would have been just as bad. Because Eubanks, great band leader and everything for Jay Leno, should have not been in the ring. He had a pretty cool diamond cutter and had a good look. He was like a thinner Karl Malone, but there's no goddamn reason as to why he should have been in the ring either. But Jay Leno being in the fucking ring, now look, I get it. Mainstream attention. Hogan chose to sell this fucking arm ring or arm bar thing where, Jay Leno had Hogan in it for like a minute, and Hogan's like, doing this kind of stuff or whatever. It's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing anymore. But Jay Leno, who I'm sure is a very nice guy. I'm sure he is. I don't know. But he was funny. He had a chin the size of an Easter Island statue, but whatever. That was part of his gimmick. Not being an Easter Island statue, but the big chin. It led to a lot of jokes, and even he poked fun at himself for that. He was a very good Tonight Show host. Johnny Carson, of course, is still the best ever. I will fight you if you disagree. But kidding, I won't fight you guys. If you guys like somebody else, great. But this is what bothered me about the match. One, it was taking place in Sturgis. And sorry, I have nothing against Sturgis at all. Like the people or bikers or whatever. You guys want to go gather there and get drunk and be stupid, fine. Go ahead. Cool. If you guys like your leather and you guys like your bikes and you guys like strapping on and, riding your crotch rockets, great. And, if you're Harleys and everything and all that, if your bikes mean a lot to you and you enjoy Sturgis, that's great. That was a terrible wrestling crowd to go to. That was absolutely abysmal. Now, I get it had a cool visual, being outside and all this shit. But there was no reason to have it at Sturgis. Other than the fact that some people in the company like motorcycles. I mean, you could kind of tell that was the reason. And it was a vanity project. No one paid admission for it. If you had it take place at like some little arena, like, I'm not saying near Sturgis, because Sturgis, from my understanding, is middle buttfuck nowhere. And it's not a very big city. If you had that at like some little arena in South Dakota, and said just down the road we're in Sturgis, and they would show the WCW stars among the bikers and stuff like that or whatever, and you'd shown that and they made it like a weekend event, I get that. But just having it outside was absolutely ridiculous. But back to the whole thing with Jay Leno in the ring. Jay Leno in a wrestling ring was such a travesty. Now, did Jay try? Yes, he certainly did try. Did he get the entertainment aspect of it? Yes, he got the entertainment aspect of it. Do I think that he was intentionally shading on the business? No, he's not a fucking athlete. And he shouldn't have been in the fucking ring at all. It was fucking bullshit. Why in the world was Jay Leno allowed in there? I mean, honestly, even at 17 years old, I remember watching this, I'm like, this is bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. Like, what in the world was this shit? What was it other than basically prostituting WCW and making WCW seem more ridiculous? Yes, WCW got a lot of big ratings and was still getting big ratings at that point. It wasn't even until about sometime in '99 that the ratings really started to fall. They didn't win a ratings victory after the show right after Halloween Havoc '98 because they ran the pay-per-view too long. Because you had to have Hogan and Warrior have a whole bunch of shit, didn't you? Yeah, Warrior and the fucking egotistical jackass that he is. I'm not sorry that he passed on. And sorry, I never liked Warrior one bit. And yeah, this is getting a little angry. I will talk more about that in Halloween Havoc '98 reflection, or maybe just talk about Hogan and Warrior. I don't know. But just watching Jay Leno in the ring. Why in the fucking Christ did somebody think, hey, this will be a great idea? It would have been a great idea if you had a comedy match between Bischoff and Jay Leno, and just had Leno end up beating, Bischoff after a diamond cutter from Eubanks, and it had been like a 5-minute match. But tag-wise, I mean, it's just to me. I mean, and DDP, one of the unsung heroes of WCW. Honestly, even though he gets talked about as being one of the best in WCW, to me, he still doesn't get enough credit for what he did for that company, breaking his body and having some really, really damn good matches. Hogan at that point was still a big star, and just to me, this whole swarm of just Jay Leno in a wrestling ring was a car wreck. It did not need to happen. It shouldn't have happened. And really just sent WCW on more of a spiral where it just wasn't going to be the biggest company anymore. Like, they were pulling every rabbit out of the hat trying to compete with Vince. And it was absolutely abysmal. So yeah, Jay Leno in the ring was a fucking embarrassment. And actually, it made me, at 17 years old, embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. Because it was shit. Okay, great, Tonight Show host is in the ring. Great, okay, cool, this kind of stuff. I don't care. I don't care how much mainstream publicity they got out of it. I got why they did the Tonight Show stuff. I got that. Having them in the corner was one thing. It just, to me, it was ridiculous. It was fucking stupid and embarrassing. It was fucking embarrassing. It was almost as embarrassing as David Arquette in winning the WCW title, and that's not a slight against David Arquette. David Arquette didn't want to do it, and they forced it on him and on all our fans. Or on all us fans, I mean. Because all us fans, like us wrestling fans, had to watch that shit and just watch it like, why would we even tune in to WCW when you made the title meaningless? And they kind of made Hogan seem meaningless. He's selling to Jay Leno. I mean, I always say, Hogan never bothered to sell to much of anybody unless he wanted to. But fucking Christ, selling to Jay Leno, that was a car wreck. So anyway, yeah, that got to be a little bit of an angry rant afterwards. But yeah, check out Bash at the Beach if you want. There's a couple good undercard matches. Main event's a bit of a train wreck, but almost a fun train wreck to watch. And yeah, check out the old, Jay Leno and DDP versus Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan match at Road Wild 98. If you want to see what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, yeah, expect some more angry rants on some WCW stuff later this year if I have time. Anyway, Agree, disagree with what I said? Like, share, comment, subscribe. Twitter link in the description. It's been Real Honesty with Joe Mifflin, Bash at the Beach 98 Reflection, and an Angry Rant, and I will see you soon.